Good evening, everyone. The time is 6:01 p.m. I'd like to call our legislative session to order. Mr. Truesdale, could you please call the roll?
Yes. Ms. Daniels?
Here.
Ms. Green?
Present.
Mr. Madsen? Here. Mr. Majors? Here. Ms. Rawls?
Present.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Present.
Ms. Bowers?
Present. Thank you. I will lead the invocation this evening. I'd like to pause to just please keep the families and friends of the following residents in your thoughts and prayers. Miss Alice Thompson, she was known as the Block Captain. She took pride in her front porch, sidewalk, and garden on South 14th Street. Ms. Thompson was previously recognized by the city for her long-standing dedication and citizenship in her Allison Hill neighborhood. Miss Nanny Ruth Brooks was known as the Icy Lady of Hall Manor. She was a mediator, counselor, and always ready to help someone. Miss Maddie Watson, she served on the board of committees at Morrison Towers where she resided. As a board member, Ms. Watson planned events, social gatherings, and travel experiences for the senior citizens. Mr. James Harvey, he was a graduate of the former John Harris High School and served as a truant officer for the Harrisburg School District. Mr. Darrell Smith, he was a graduate of the former William Penn High School. Mr. Smith was the owner of a carpet cleaning business. He enjoyed photography. Mr. Wallace Butler, he was employed as a sales assistant at Pilot Company. Mr. Butler enjoyed gaming, music, and movies. Miss Marianne Barry McKinney, she earned an associate's degree from Hack in accounting. She retired from the Pennsylvania Department of Labor and Industry after 20 years of service. Mr. Kareem Parker Jr., he was known for his fun-loving personality. He could always make you laugh. Mr. Edwin Torres Martinez, and Mr. James Pinkney. Mr. Pinkney was a member of Bethel AME Church, a very, very faithful member, and the king of Berry Hill. He was always very kind, a gentle, big teddy bear. All of these individuals clearly left indelible marks on different areas of our city. So I'd please ask you again to please keep their families and friends in your thoughts and prayers in the coming days ahead. We could all pause for a moment of silence. Thank you. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Vice President Green. Thank you, Vice President Green. We will now move to our communications for tonight. This evening, our recognition is of Kirk Smallwood Day. This is rather personal to me, but very much needed. I couldn't let you retire quietly, and I would not sit idly by and allow that to happen. So here we are today. If you'll indulge me for a few minutes, I'd like to read the press release that was shared. Legendary basketball coach Kirk Smallwood to be honored by Harrisburg City Council. Legendary Harrisburg High School basketball coach Kirk Smallwood will be honored during City Council's legislative session on Tuesday, November 15th. Council plans to declare the day as Kirk Smallwood Day in the city of Harrisburg to honor the longtime Cougars coach and athletic director. Smallwood retired from coaching in May of 2022 as the winningest coach in Harrisburg High School history, finishing his career with a record of 678 to 245. Smallwood, a native of Harrisburg and 1973 high school graduate, led the Cougars to PIAA state championships in 1998 and 2002. Kirk Smallwood is the winningest coach in Harrisburg School District history, explained City Council President Danielle Bowers. I could not sit idly by and allow him to retire quietly without recognition of the impact he's made in the city of Harrisburg. In addition to his 2 state championships, Harrisburg High School won 19 Mid-Penn Conference titles and 9 District 3 championships under Smallwood's 2 tenures as varsity boys basketball coach from 1979 through 1988 and 1993 to 2022. Smallwood also served as the Cougars athletic director from 1999 to 2015. Kirk Smallwood was far greater than someone who dealt with schedules and X's and O's on a play chart. He was and remains today a pillar of the Harrisburg community. Since 1991, he has helped operate the Smallwood Summer League, now the BMD Brotherhood League, every summer for 7 weeks. He has also operated skills clinics for youth through the Camp Curtin YMCA. Kirk Smallwood has touched hundreds of children's lives during his tenure as basketball head coach and Harrisburg athletic director. I thoroughly enjoyed my service to my school district and the city of Harrisburg, Smallwood said. I showed up every day and gave my best. I was honored to lead from the front, to touch and change the lives of our young people. I just wanted to share that press release so everyone knew just some of the impact that you've made in the city. I have a proclamation I'd like to read and then a plaque for presentation. City of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Office of City Council and Office of City Clerk. Proclamation. Whereas it is with admiration and by the grace of God that we are joined together to honor and celebrate a true pillar of the Harrisburg community and a devoted public servant to so many of our youth. And whereas we recognize Mr. Kirk Smallwood, a native of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and the former athletic director of the Harrisburg High School and former head coach of the Harrisburg High School varsity boys basketball team. And whereas he was educated in the Harrisburg School District, having graduated from Harrisburg High in 1973. And whereas Mr. Smallwood touched hundreds of young lives during his tenure as athletic director from 1999 through 2015, which included overseeing a plethora of both conference and district championships. And whereas he served as head coach of the Harrisburg Cougars varsity boys basketball team from 1979 through 1988 and 1993 to 2022, a career spanning over 4 decades. During his tenure as head coach, Mr. Smallwood won 19 Mid-Penn Conference championships, 9 District 3 championships, and 2 PIAA state championships, as well as being named the 1998 and 2002 AP Big School Coach of the Year. And whereas Mr. Smallwood retired from coaching in May of 2022 as the winningest coach in Harrisburg High School history, finishing his career with a record of 678 to 245 and leaving behind a long legacy of success. Now, therefore, be it hereby proclaimed that on the 15th day of November 2022, Harrisburg City Council does hereby designate Kirk Smallwood Day in the city of Harrisburg. Be it further proclaimed that Harrisburg City Council herewith professes its sincere gratitude to Kirk Smallwood for his unwavering devotion to our schools, city, and most importantly, to our youth, who he has served tirelessly throughout his years in Harrisburg. Signed and attested in the city of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Michael J. Parker, City Clerk, Danielle L. Bowers, Harrisburg City Council. We do have a photographer en route, but I do see another, a friendly face of a photographer. So I'm hopeful that, oh, here's our photographer now. So I would like for you to join me. I will come around, we can take a picture. And then if all council members could join me following that, we will then recess for 5 minutes for pictures with family and friends. But today is Kirk Smallwood Day, so if you could just please join me in appreciating the man with a round of applause and recognition. I will note that the flag bears all of his stats as athletic director and as vice president basketball coach. And in the end, it's commemorated today, November 15th, 2022, as Personal Day in the city of Harrisburg. We will now take a 5-minute recess if all of his family, fraternity brothers, and everyone gathered, if we could join us for pictures. But council members, please come down first. So 5-minute recess for photos. Thank you. Harrisburg. Yep. That's funny. Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, then don't let me walk away.
All right, we will resume our meeting. It's 6:24 PM. We will now move to courtesy of the floor. Just for housekeeping, please keep your comments to 2 minutes. Mr. Truesdale will serve as our timer. Please state your name and your address. If you don't feel comfortable sharing your address, please just share the vicinity in which you live within the city. I'll begin to my far right. Is there anyone that would like to offer public comment? Okay, seeing and hearing no one, I will move to the middle section. Is there anyone in the middle section that would like to offer public comment? Seeing and hearing no one, I will move to my left. Is there anyone to my left that would like to offer public comment? Okay, seeing and hearing no one, we will move forward with our agenda. We'll move to approval of minutes. Council members, this would be approval of the minutes for the legislative session of October 25th, 2022. Are there any revisions, questions, comments, or concerns related to those minutes? Seeing and hearing none, the minutes stand approved. We will now move to reports of committees. The first report you will hear this evening, I will deliver on behalf of the Administration Committee on the work session of November 1st, 2022. On Tuesday, November 1st, 2022, the Administration Committee met to discuss one bill and one resolution. Bill 11 of 2022 is an ordinance reenacting ordinance number 9 of 2017 for the purposes of reauthorizing within the city of Harrisburg an area previously designated as a neighborhood improvement district, redesignating the Harrisburg Downtown Improvement District Corporation, a nonprofit entity, to administer the same, accepting an updated business plan for the district, and reauthorizing assessments for the operation thereof, and meeting all other requirements under the Neighborhood Improvement District Act for continuation of the same, and repealing all inconsistent ordinances or parts of ordinances. Mr. Todd Vanderwoody, Executive Director of the Downtown Improvement District, or DID, Mr. Robert Potter, the Board President, Ms. Marita Kelly, Finance Director for the City of Harrisburg, and Mr. Neil Grover, City Solicitor, were all present to discuss the bill. Mr. Vanderwoody provided an overview of DID's work. The mission of the Downtown Improvement District is to focus on making downtown clean, safe, and beautiful. The Downtown Improvement District territory includes 269 properties. The Downtown Improvement District is currently authorized to operate through December 31st, 2022. Other highlights from Mr. Vanderwoody's presentation include COVID-19 summer nights in the street dining facade improvement program, which included 14 properties participating, They've hosted events such as the St. Patrick's Day Parade, the Holiday Parade, and Harrisburg Restaurant Week, which included 22 restaurants for this year. Seasonal banners, daily cleaning, seasonal sidewalk power washing, and over 350 flower baskets and pots. Their website has been updated and they have social media accounts. Their future plans include increase their social media presence, a weekly newsletter, additional signage, and green initiatives. Council members ask questions regarding spurring tourism within the downtown area, any inconsistencies between the previous renewal and current bill, weekends and parking issues, city-county partnership with the Love HBG Code, business health, other partnerships, shopping in Strawberry Square, and Restaurant Week metrics. Solicitor Grover clarified that the process has changed, not the language of the bill. The process has been reduced to a bill to reauthorize the Downtown Improvement District for another 5-year period through December 31st, 2027. It is also important to note that the Downtown Improvement District is funded by property owners in the downtown area. Next, we discuss Resolution 68 of 2022, a resolution authorizing the city solicitor to designate counsel for the performance of certain prosecutorial functions on behalf of the city of Harrisburg. Mr. Neil Grover, city solicitor, was present to discuss the resolution. Solicitor Grover explained the need for outside counsel to represent the city when conflicts occur with a sole solicitor in the Law Bureau. There are no budgetary implications as the settlement fund of $100,000 was previously approved by City Council. Council members asked the following questions: number of special counsels considered, fee schedule, civil side budget line item, and the number of attorneys interviewed to fill the vacancies within the Law Bureau. Solicitor Grover shared that one special counsel is being considered. Different lawyers would assist with city cases. The special counsel would work under a fee schedule on an hourly basis. Formal documents will validate their presence. The past 2 attorneys that were interviewed received better offers from other entities. I recommend my colleagues' support of Bill 11 of 2022 and Resolution 68 of 2022. Bill 11 of 2022 will authorize the Downtown Improvement District to remain in operation over the next 5 years through December 31st of 2022. Resolution 68 of 2022 will provide assistance to the Law Bureau specifically to address codes violations during a 2-day hearing schedule to address pending appeals. This concludes the report of the Administration Committee. Next, we will hear from Chair Daniels on the work session of November 1st, 2022. Chair Daniels?
Thank you. On November 1st of 2022, the Community and Economic Development Committee heard agenda item Resolution 65-2022, which was a planned proposal for the 1510 Market Street building, which is a church. The applicant was Shalom House, and they were their goal is to retrofit the church to convert it into a 14-room supportive housing facility. Overall, the project was supported by the city's administration. There were questions about parking and the structure of parking, given the space, given our zoning code, and given the needs of the applicant. So the city and the applicant agreed to continue their discussions about the parking considerations, and we'll revisit this resolution 2 weeks from now. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. The next report you will hear will be from Chair Rodriguez on the work session of November 1st, 2022. Chair Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President. Greetings, wonderful citizens of Harrisburg, my esteemed colleagues on council and the administration. My name is Ralph Rodriguez Sr., and I'm your chair for the Harrisburg City Public Safety Committee. On 11/1/22, the Public Safety Committee met to discuss Resolution 67 of 2022. Resolution 67 of 2022 is a resolution of the City of Harrisburg ratifying modifications to the 2020-25 collecting bargaining agreement between the City of Harrisburg and the Fraternal Order of Police, Capital City Lodge Number 12. From the administration was City Solicitor, Mr. Neil Grover, and an overview from was Ramilda Crocomo. Ms. Crocomo stated highlights of the resolution are lateral hires, salary increases, and the recognition and option to have paid off holidays for Juneteenth. Council had great questions, including one being asked about the process of employees taking off for said Juneteenth holiday. Solicitor Grover then responded that it was up to the discretion of the employee in which holiday that they chose to have off and the holiday paid for. Deputy Chief Swanson did join us and gave some great insight and background addressing CSAs, the negotiation process, and how overall this is a fair offer for everyone. The committee session was very brief and to the point, and I do ask for the support of my fellow council members to move in the affirm of Resolution 67 of 2022. And that concludes the report of the Public Safety Committee for the City of Harrisburg. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Chair Rodriguez. The next report you will hear will be from Chair Majors on the work session of November 1st, 2022. Chair Majors.
Thank you, President Bowers. On November 1st, the Building and Housing Committee met to consider one bill, Bill 9 of 2022, an ordinance amending Part 1 of Title 12 of the Codified Ordinance of the City of Harrisburg, entitled Affordable Housing, incorporating applicable fair rental measures promulgated by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to improve local standards and affordability determinations and to provide for technical amendments. During the meeting, we heard from Director Hill, who gave us a brief overview of the bill. The bill is to more closely align our affordable housing ordinance with the small area fair market rates that are set by HUD, which are determined by zip code, versus the Harrisburg Carlisle MSA that we are in, so that our affordable housing could be more closely aligned to what actual residents in the zip codes that Harrisburg covers are in versus our larger metropolitan statistical area, to try and bring those numbers a little bit closer so that we can try to improve affordable housing and access to housing affordability within the city of Harrisburg. The zip codes included are zip codes 17101, 17102, 17103, 17104, and 17110. All the small area fair market rents can be found on the HUD website, and they include numbers from an efficiency through a 4-bedroom apartment. Again, the affordable housing ordinance that we had passed previously is trying to get developers to be able to offer housing at 80% of those rates so that we can try to make housing more affordable for our residents of the city of Harrisburg. After our meeting, there are 2 technical amendments that were brought up that I'm asking council to consider tonight. And I have asked all of my council to vote in the affirmative for Bill 9 of 2022. And that concludes my report, President Bowers.
Thank you, Chair Majors. The final committee report you will hear this evening will come from Chair Mattson on the work session of November 1st, 2022. Chair Mattson.
Yes, thank you, President Bowers. On November the 1st of 2022, the Public Works Committee met to discuss Resolution 66. Resolution 66 is authorizing the city of Harrisburg to negotiate and enter into an intergovernmental cooperation agreement with the township of Swadera for the purpose of allowing for ongoing use of compost facility owned by the township of Swadera. The city solicitor gave an overview of the legal background of composting in the city, most notably the legal disputes with Susquehanna Township that are now currently resolved. The Public Works Department gave an overview of logistics and benefits of the arrangement, such as easier leaf collection. The total cost is $50,000 a year. It is a 2-year contract. Overall, the resolution seemed pretty straightforward, and I would recommend my colleagues vote in the affirmation of this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Mattson. Council members, we do not have any ordinances for first reading or for amendment, but we do have 2 ordinances for final passage. We will begin with Bill 9 of 2022. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Yep. Bill 9, 2022, An ordinance amending Part 1 of Title 12 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Harrisburg entitled Affordable Housing, incorporating applicable fair rental measures promulgated by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to improve local standards and affordability determinations and to provide for technical amendments.
Thank you. Chair Majors, you mentioned introducing two technical amendments.
Yes. Just make sure we suspend the rules to offer technical amendments.
If you want to discuss them, you would suspend the rules. Otherwise, you just make a motion.
Okay.
to do so.
All right.
Would you like to discuss them, or how would you like to proceed?
I guess I'd make a motion to suspend the rules for just brief discussion. Should
Thank you.
take-
Is there a second? Thank you.
So these technical amendments are very much lawyer amendments. It is turning the term median family income into a term of art under the ordinance, and it simply capitalizes the letters and puts in the abbreviation. It actually lets us marry the language here with the zoning code, which has a table regarding benefits that you adopted last year for developers under MFI, but it's not spelled out anywhere in the zoning code. So it basically fixes the two issues together in a very simple change in three places in the current code,
Right.
the bill in front of you.
Correct. And then just one also, then there's just one deletion, just of, correct?
That was already there. So
Okay.
that was there.
The
from
red deletion, the additional red deletion. I just want to make
the,
sure,
the,
as I'm reading.
the orange deletion on mine.
Okay,
So those are the ones that's in the existing passcode.
okay.
So the blue is what this Bill 9 proposed.
Yeah, we got to work on
Orange took it.
red and orange.
The colors are new to my world.
Okay.
We haven't done that. It's not, so.
All right, yeah, I just was making sure because it looks, all right, I'm good then.
One more thing. So just to reiterate, this eliminates the need for the amendment to the zoning code, correct?
Right. It
Okay.
eliminates the companion bill.
Yes, I know we mentioned that before, so I just wanted for everyone to be clear that that is no longer necessary with these technical amendments. You'd like to return to the
Yes,
session?
yes, sorry.
Okay,
Yes, I'd like to return to session.
all right, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. We are back in our legislative session to consider Bill 9 of 2022. Chair Majors?
All right. Benson, I'd like to offer a technical amendment. It would be to lines 61, 62. Under where it spells out median family income, it is going to capitalize the M in median, F in family, and I in income on those lines, as well as doing the same on line 65 to capitalize median family income and then include the abbreviation MFI. And then lastly, on line 83, under workforce, we're going to do the same thing, which would be to capitalize the M in median, 83 and 84, sorry, lines 83 and 84, the M in median, the F in family, and the I in income.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Council members, are there any questions, comments, or concerns related to the amendment? Okay. Seeing and hearing none, Mr. Truesdale, could you please call the vote?
Ms. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Mattson,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Rolls,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers.
Yes,
Passes unanimously 7-0.
thank you. So we now have before us Bill 9 of 2022 as amended. Council members, are there any final questions, comments, or concerns related to Bill 9 as amended? Okay, seeing and hearing none, Mr. Truesdale, could you please call the vote?
Ms. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Mattson,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Rolls,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Ms. Bowers.
Yes,
Vote passes unanimously.
thank you. Okay, the second ordinance for final passage is Bill 11 of 2022. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Bill 11, 2022, an ordinance reenacting ordinance number 9 of 2017 for the purposes of reauthorizing within the city of Harrisburg an area previously designated as a neighborhood improvement district, redesignating the Harrisburg Downtown Improvement District Corporation, a nonprofit entity, to administer the same accepting an updated business plan for the district and reauthorizing assessments for the operation thereof and meeting all other requirements under the Neighborhood Improvement District Act for continuation of the same and repealing all inconsistent ordinances on part of or parts of ordinances.
Thank you. Council members, are there any questions, comments, or concerns related to Bill 11 of 2022? Okay, seeing and hearing none, Mr. Truesdale, could you please call the vote?
Ms. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Madsen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Rawls,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers.
Yes,
Passes by a vote of 7-0.
thank you. Moving to resolutions, our first resolution for consideration tonight is Resolution 64 of 2022. I will entertain a motion to suspend the rules for discussion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. I will defer to our Budget and Finance Chair, Vice President Green.
Thank you. I believe we have a presentation from the city, so if they'd like to start with that before we jump into any questions, that'd be great.
Good evening, city council members. Everyone can hear me okay with my mask on? I'm getting through the end of a cold, just being protective. Presentation is a 9 slide overview on the AMBAC debt. And of course, it's nothing new. I know you're all familiar with this. The bond insurance liability, forbearance liability. And the way this is laid out, much better, thank you. I want to thank members of council that met with us last week to take an intro dive into this. Also tonight, there are members from the city controller's office and the city treasurer's office. We've had a lot of input, a lot of analysis built into this. The brief history on this first schedule is a 2-page because it covers so much territory. But it shows the inception of the debt and the payments made by the city, which is in this column appearing here. And you can see how the payments are so small, and which is a big reason as to why we are up to where we are currently, roughly $20 million in forbearance liability. The highlight there last year in November reflects the prepayment the city did make of $4 million, and also took advantage of a credit AMBAC afforded the city. of approximately 3.3 million. Based on that, AMBAC restructured the payments, and you can see how they start next year at the 1.9 million, which is approximately 3.9 million in debt service annually, which runs into the early part of 2029. And in this version, if in maintaining this approach, you can see the resulting payoff and the total interest cost over the life of this revised payment plan of 16.8 million. I mentioned that items 1 and 2, the interest rate, along with the credit, the city received a reduced interest rate of 5% for 3 years during the subsequent period. It will go back up to 6.75 in November of 24. I mentioned the grand total interest cost. The last payment we made was back recently, September 15th. And if you factor in from that point on to March of 29, you can see how much more interest is yet to come the city would have to bear of over $4 million. And also, this schedule reflects what the interest expense would be for next year, approximately $1 million. So that brings us to the analysis and review we've done, and the idea of paying off the full liability with accrued interest by December 15th. We will be at 20.2 million in total liability. Payoff would be, which is part of this third proposed reallocation. It's reflected, sourced by the city's fund balance. And I mentioned in the previous slide that if we maintain the AMBAC's original revised schedule, you can see there the highlights, 16.8 million in interest. If the city chooses to pay this off now, the total interest would end at 13 million, and would also eliminate the need to have any budgeting of debt service for this liability going forward. That's the schedule with this version of the proposed payoff for December. This is one version. We've previously discussed also with the mayor's office 2 other scenarios. They're not reflected in this PowerPoint, as this is focused on the full payoff of the liability. The last part of this is obviously what this means to our cash position. Currently, right now, as we've moved into the middle of November, the city's cash position approximates 36.3 million. We anticipate the cash fund balance on a conservative basis being between 14 and 15 million by the end of this year, with the full payoff of the AMBAC debt. And at that point, these next 2 slides reflect where would we go into the early part of 2023. An analysis here of the city's revenue. We looked at recent years. We tend to see a range of total annual revenue being somewhere between 65 and 69 million. The budget that's currently being worked on presently includes a projected forecast of revenue for next year of 69.1 million. So what I did with these next 2 slides, that's number 2, this is number 1. There's 3 parts to them. Again, the revenue, I mentioned the range revenue. And then to try to get a sense of what our first month's revenue of the new year would be, based on historics and this analytic approach. we tend to see our revenue be in the 25 to 27 million dollar range by the end of April. When you divide that by the total annual revenue for the year, there's very consistent rates that show there that range between 37 and 39%. On the expense side too, I did a similar approach, just to get our actual expenses as a percentage of revenue and what those percentages come out to be. And again, there's consistency there as they range between 26 and up to 27%. So using those rates, and again, we're projecting our updated projection of 69.109 million for our budget next year. And applying those percentages, I'm saying that by the end of April of next year, 26.6 million in revenue at that point, and expenditures would be approximately 19.3 million. That whole long story gets to what the increase in cash position would be of 7.2. And the idea there is if we go down, if the city does the full payment approach and goes down to 14 to 15 million by the end of this year, cash will increase into the early part of next year. So there's no concern about cash significantly falling within the first quarter, the first 4 months of next year. Any questions on that material or comments?
I don't have any questions on the material presented as of right now. Does anyone else have any questions specifically on what was presented at the moment?
Yeah, just. We have the sheet that's helpful, but I think for anybody tuning in, if you can just explain it in layman's terms, essentially, how much is the interest costing us every year of the debt?
If I go back to that schedule, the way it's been restructured and settled, it fluctuates, but if you go by years, for 2023, I mentioned 991,000 for next year.
So if we paid this
For 2024, it would.
okay. But yearly, it's roughly around 900.
It'll graduate down.
Oh.
Like 2023 is 991,000. 2024 would be roughly 930,000.
Okay.
So it comes down as the payments, as the balance will start to lower significantly starting in 2023, because the city will finally be making material payments against this debt. They're semi-annual payments, and they'll hold static at 1,944,000.
Okay. So if we pay it all now, we'll save how much total? Around $4 million. Okay. That was all I wanted. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions on the material?
Not on the material, but you did note, Brian, that there were other scenarios that were discussed. So the only information provided to us at this meeting tonight was the one scenario of paying it off. Could we just talk about what those other scenarios are? Because
yeah, there were two others. The other one that we found favor with is a partial payment. This version is the 20.2. We looked at one for 12 million. Same time frame. It would be paid by December 15th. And then the idea would be, again, to look at it as by this time next year, we would like to see the debt fully paid off. So to do that, it would take, this is one version, you could do two more significant payments in 2023 of approximately 4.2 million in March and again in September. It wouldn't have to be that way because the settlement agreement allows the city to make payments in any month as long as they're made by the 15th. And AMBAC would accordingly, adjust their records and the amortization schedule. But that again, that's just one version.
Okay, and then the third, so we got one
One-
is a complete payoff this year of 20 million. The second is two payments, well, I guess three payments, excuse me. One significant payment this year, two additional payments next year to get us to that 20 million. And then the third,
Right, you could again pick on the 12 million for this year and then do a much larger one payment next year. And depending, again, you have to remember that if the city lets this debt go into 2023, we have to at least pay what's been laid out in the revised settlement agreement, which is the 1.9 million due in March and due in September. So we could pay it all off in March if we just do a partial payment in December of this year. Or you could do 1.9 million in March, and then come September, you could pay off the remainder. Right.
okay,
We also looked at one other scenario. I mentioned, full payoff 12 million. We looked at 10.1 million in December as a smaller option as well. But we didn't find much favor with that because it's well, to me, it wasn't material as far as what would be a bigger benefit to the city. And by doing the 12 million in 2023 and going through the scenario I described, the 4.2 in March and September, the city would incur additional interest expense of $205,000. So as you, again, as you make the payments small, well, as you make this payment smaller or delay the payments, the interest expense will continue to rise.
Just to speak from, where the mayor was with that, she looked at what the police bureau budget is and likened that to, that's 4 more police vehicles. So in her mind, she looked at what the accounts were, where the projections were going. And the reason why what's in front of you is full of this. That was her recommendation. But we're willing to talk with you about it.
okay. No further questions. May have some later, but nothing right now.
All right, thank you. Since that's the only questions on the material, our condo, we'll ask a few questions about just the overall scenario, just to kind of drill down on things a little bit. So the first question, when does the interest rate increase? I believe it's November 24.
Yeah, that's correct.
So until November 2024, we will continue to pay at a 5% interest.
That's correct. Up on the screen, if you look at item 3, it'll hold at 5 until November of 24.
All
And
right.
then it reverts back to the stated interest rate, which the original stated interest rate, 6.75%.
Yeah, on the March 15, 2025 payment, it goes back.
Okay. I guess one of the things I'm kind of thinking of, since this is budget season time, is the 2023 budget predicated on this being paid off? Are we making our projections for our balancing our budget based off of this being paid off? Or are we developing the budget based off of having this debt service payment?
It's flexible either way.
Okay. Let's see. I guess interest is what creates the time sensitivity is it like, I guess, why are we looking at this right now, right? Why at the beginning, right before, a week before budget presentations, why is it necessary to do this now compared to doing it in January? Or have done it in September? Like, why November 15th are we looking at it when next week we're going to have a presentation of the budget by the mayor?
So when we opened it up, we wanted to monitor it, looking on a quarterly schedule. We did not want to do anything, make any moves, do any analysis until we at least had 3 quarters of data for this year. And then we had a good idea of where things were going for the 4th quarter, so the last 3 months. So the reason why is when September 30th hit, closed October, 1st or 2nd week of October, all of those hearings closed. In our systems, we went and started really doing the deep dive analysis in the plans then, which got to where we're at now of introducing legislation. It was just
Okay.
how the timing on, again, us taking it seriously because it's a large payment that we're bringing above 20, a little bit above 20 million. But the way we looked at it was, we're not tracking our dollars in, dollars out throughout the year, just to be sure, because you hear ideas and things on the macro side of economics, of recession, of, layoffs, different things like that. We wanted to take a very cautious approach to paying this off. It's something that the mayor, the controller, and the treasurer have been huge components of for a very long time. But, we had to tell her and others, we needed to pump the brakes a little bit just because we don't fully know, and we still don't even fully know on the macro side how everything comes up. But looking at, what the policies are, government finance officers, their trade organization says a city like us should have 17% or about a 2-month backup in funds. And on a budget the size that we have, that's about $12 million. We will be far above that, which is where I think the mayor said, yeah, if you track those numbers and continue, and we're still doing it. Up to this day, Brian and I were running the numbers an hour and a half of dollars in, dollars out. We're going to continue to do that through the following weeks. And if slips come on the radar that give us pause, we can always dial things back. And that's always been our plan. Heavy monitoring. Bill Lineberger, Marita, Dan Miller, Charlie DeBruno, we're all monitoring this and doing our part.
All right. I guess I've got a couple of different comments. I'll kind of keep some of them limited and then open it up to my colleagues here. One, I'll say that if I'm correct, we've had presentation up until the mid-year as far as the budget, right? As far as where we're at right now, current standings. We haven't had a 3rd quarter. So you apparently would have more information than us, right? So if the information that we have, we're not as up to speed with you as to exactly where we are right now with our budget and how much we've spent and, money in, money out. So I'll say you'll have an advantage to us as far as that information. I would request that information before I'd be comfortable voting for this, just so that I can be confident in where our standing is. I also do have pause with the budget coming, with this being kind of right before the budget season. I personally don't get the time sensitivity to get it done now, compared to getting it done in January, when we can look at not only what's going on with the market, but what our budget looks like for the next year. We don't have that information. We don't even have a presentation of the information. We'll get that next week. But this will be passed tonight. If it would go according to the administration's request, it would be that it was presented, discussed, and voted on tonight, hopefully to the affirmative, obviously, according to the administration. That's why they brought it down. And I feel like with us not having that information yet, it puts me, I won't speak for everyone. It doesn't put me in a comfortable space to go, well, with the information that I have based on the 6 months of 2022, we're making the decision for paying off $20 million and dropping our fund balance down quite low. I mean, it's a decent fund balance, but with the unsureties of the market, I do have some pause about it. Also, looking at the 5-year plan and projected capital needs. And I mean, it was in there, so I'll just say it, the possibility of needing to borrow money and not even having the ability to legally borrow money. I go, why are we looking to pay off? Why would we empty out our savings down to a minimal level and then possibly maybe need to ask to borrow in the future at what I'm going to just assume will be a higher than 5% interest rate if we did it anytime in 2023. So that's kind of my opinion on it. I'll leave it at that as far as my questions or comments, and I'll open it up to my colleagues. I'm going to start to my far right with Councilman Rodriguez.
Madam Budget Chair, if I may, I think there are other presentations to be given. Do you want to hear those first before you go to questions, or do you?
Sure.
I think Bill actually typed something, so that's really.
All right. Yes, please introduce yourself and present. If we could get everything presented that way, when we ask questions, you know, we're asking, you know, we have all the information. I'm an information person. It's hard to make a decision without the information. So if we could get any presentations or any other information you guys want to give us, that'd be great.
I have a statement from the mayor who's unable to make it.
Why'd you guys let me start going on and on then?
There's Treasurer Miller, or I don't mean to interject, but just trying to figure out the sequence.
However, you know, we go. You like ICA to speak?
I believe, okay. So we'll just start from this side and work our way over.
Good evening, Council. William Lineberger, Deputy Controller in the Controller's Office. I have a statement to read on behalf of Controller Charlie DeBruno. President Bowers and members of Council, we have the opportunity to rid ourselves of this 25-year debt, and now is the time to do it. As of mid-September, the AMBAC debt had a balance of approximately $20 million, but it's earning 5% interest. We can save taxpayers $4 million in interest expense if we act now. The recent payoff of the city's general obligation bonds and notes, Series D and F of 1997, give the city $8.65 million of new spending each year. AMBAC repayments begin in 2023 at approximately $4 million a year. So if we don't pay off the AMBAC liability, that $8.65 million gets cut down almost in half. As of the end of October, the city had about $34.8 million in unassigned, unreserved cash left in the general fund. We could pay off this debt now and still have $14 to $15 million left. Best practices, according to the Government Finance Officers Association, recommend the city should leave itself with $11 million at the end of the year. That's 2 months of operating revenue or operating costs. So on a $68 million budget, that would be $11 million. So if we were to pay off the debt now, we'd still have more than enough money left in the bank to operate. Then, of course, is the benefit to our citizens. Paying off the AMBAC liability in 2022 means we could take that $8.65 million we get at the start of the year and put it towards future annual budgets. If the administration continues to produce reasonable budgets moving forward, the city would easily rebuild its general fund balance quickly. All that being said, we are grateful to any significant payment council is able to make during 2022. Any outcome tonight that involves paying off a considerable sum of this remaining debt is a positive outcome for the taxpayers. However, the longer we wait to pay off its entirety, the more costs will be heaped upon the taxpayers through interest payments in the future. The Controller's Office believes incurring additional interest expense by delaying the payoff into 2023 would come at the cost of purchasing several police cars or foregoing other capital projects simply for the sake of a larger fund balance. Thank you all for your time.
Good evening. I'm Dan Miller, obviously treasurer, and it's interesting. We're all doing our own pieces. We're all getting sort of to the same spot, is what I've seen. And as treasurer, I don't know if what our two main objectives, our two main goals and our tasks. One, we are collecting money. We're collecting all the revenue in the city. Number two is we have to make sure that there are funds available for the disbursements of the city. Those are our two main objectives and tasks. I don't think there's anybody in this building that's more concerned with our cash flow than Treasury is. Because we don't want to get to like Friday and there's payday and we don't have enough money to make payroll. So cash flow is hugely important for us. When Celia and I analyzed this, we got basically to the same spot. We got, as of the end of based on what we have now, what we see coming in November, December, what's going out, we see that as of December 31st, we've figured $14.2 million. And the reason I think we're less than them is because it's more of an issue for us. We did a conservative issue, not a wild one. So that's a lot of money for us to start the new year. And as everybody said, I mean, we're collecting money in January, we're collecting money in February. We get a very large chunk of money in March. So I don't see any issue with us in our cash flow going forward with paying this AMBAC debt off. And of course, we are proponents of this. We've been proponents of this for several years. I think we had the money last year. We discussed this with the mayor at that time. And to your question, why are we doing it now? Yeah, I don't know. We should have done it in January. It's a lot of things I think we should have done sooner that we didn't get to this year, but at least we're doing them now. So I don't think that the timing now is an issue. I wish the timing would have been much sooner. Because if you think about it, that $20 million sat in our bank account this entire year, did nothing, and we cost us $1 million, 900. I mean, on a personal note, if that was your own company, would you want to spend $1 million just to know you had $20 million sitting in the bank for the whole year? Especially when we have extra cash. We have the fund balance. It's not like we're tight right now. So, that's our position. Basically, it's much better for the taxpayers. We're going to have to pay this money back anyway. I think like $4 million next year, and I don't know, probably $4 million for several years, basically, until it's paid off. So we might as well pay it off now, save that $1 million and have a clean break, because we have the funds to pay our bills, to pay our payroll, and to make it through the year. So, yeah, any questions?
I'm going to read what I was able to transcribe from talking to the mayor over the phone. President Bowers and members of council. This is just my part. Mayor Williams was planning on speaking to you all tonight, but however, due to a personal family emergency, which came up, that's why I'm here giving this message. So here's the mayor's words. We're on the verge of rewriting our city's story. For a quarter of a century, the city of Harrisburg has been paying for its past decisions. While other cities around us have been writing checks for better communities, we've been writing checks to pay off past debt. This is a fight we've all waged with Mayor Williams, me speaking, by your side in recent years. Mayor says we're close to winning. We can't let up now. We're close to bringing the city back to prosperity. To use a football analogy, because she was watching football when this happened, she said, we're on the 1 yard line and now is not the time to take a knee. Each of you are sound stewards of taxpayer money. You're deeply committed to the residents of this city. The administration believes you're going to do the right thing in analyzing this. If we fail to act now and eliminate or pay down this AMBAC debt, we will accrue over $4 million in interest in the coming years and over $900,000 in interest next year alone. Our seniors and families have paid enough of a price over the last 25 years. Why would we want them to pay any more when we have the power to stop it? Voting to move forward on this debt payment tonight isn't just a vote for writing another check. It's a vote for Harrisburg's future. And it's a sign to our citizens that the time to finally move forward into the next chapter of this great city's legacy begins with tonight. Thank you. And to answer one of your questions, Brian does have a better look at numbers. So this is the report he has to file with DCED. So Brian, if you want to actually go through the October numbers that were submitted to DCED on November 14th.
All right. Certainly, thanks, Dan. Just a monthly capsulation for October. We started October with a beginning fund balance of 34.9 million. Our monthly revenue for October was 4 million. Our monthly expenditures, including payments against prior year encumbrances, was 4.1 million. So it was essentially a break-even month, getting us down to the ending cash balance, 34.8 million, October 31st. Year-to-date numbers. Right now, our adjusted revenue budget is 73.4 million. We've achieved 67.7 million of that budget, or 92.25% through October. That's a pretty good pacing. And on the expenditure side, our adjusted budget is 72.8 million approximately, and our expenditures total to 57.3 million against that budget. And that year-to-date percentage is approximately 79% in expenditures. If you do some math calculation on the expense budget through October, it would somewhere be unevenly paced, somewhere around 83 to 85%. So we're close. We're about 79% in expenditures. But there is a year-to-date surplus of revenue and expenditures of approximately 10.4 million. And another part of, in relation, Vice President Green, what you mentioned about timing, whether you view it as intentional timing or not, it does work out nicely, because September is always a good barometer, because our expenditures finally catch up to our revenue. But during the year, I think you might recall in the mid-year, like our expenses were running really well below our revenue. And we have so many significant payments in September, mainly the consistent debt service, and then the pension, the MMOs for the police and fire pension. So finally, when you get to September, you could really take a good look, and it's a meaningful point. Of course, it's 3/4 of your year, and your revenue and expenses are a better reflection of what is trending for the final quarter.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Anyone else before we get to the ICA? Seeing none?
Thanks, Neil. Good evening, President Bowers, City Council members, and members of the administration. I'm Audrey Carter, and I currently chair the Intergovernmental Cooperation.
Ms. Carter, if you wouldn't mind moving a little bit closer to the microphone. Thank you.
Yes. So I won't thank you again, but I do thank you for the opportunity to quickly share some thoughts on behalf of the ICA regarding Resolution 64 of this year, which you are considering this evening. As you may recall, the ICA has always supported paying off the city of Harrisburg's debt as quickly as possible. We see this as a primary factor in assuring that the city can re-enter the bond market as soon as it exits Act 47. Frankly, many of us had hoped that could have been accomplished as many as 3 years ago upon signing the Intergovernmental Cooperation Agreement. Unfortunately, extenuating circumstances from the incinerator lawsuits keep the city and the ICA from signing the mutually agreed upon draft of this agreement. At its October 26th meeting, the ICA board, on whose behalf I'm speaking tonight, discussed the city's ambition to pay the entirety of the AMBEC debt. As a board, we applaud the collaborative work between the city and the controller and the treasurer in projecting the impact of paying off nearly $21 million in December. In this scenario, as you've heard, based on best estimates, the payoff would still leave the city with just under 15 million in general fund balance, which is very close to the 17 million that is recommended. It is also refreshing to see the administration take a proactive discussion of managing debt. As you all know, the AMBAC totals represent debt on our prior debt, the most insidious kind of burden to have taken on. Based on what I've described, my colleagues and I on the ICA board encourage and approve paying off as much as possible of this debt this year. Approval of this resolution would allow you to commit to the entire amount or less, I believe. However, we also promote exploring the wisdom in reviewing the pay down amount in light of facts that will become known before the end of the year. These facts include the final development of the FY23 budget, the extra costs of the fire and FOP contracts, the track of the final 22 revenue and expense numbers, projections of the country's economic health, and the city's continued inability to access credit markets. Perhaps in review and hindsight, these figures may argue for a more prudent approach in paying off the majority of the amount this year, but aiming for final payoff early next year once there is more clarity. Thank you again for your time, and like others, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Any other comments before I open it to my colleagues? Seeing none, I'm going to start with Councilman Rodriguez. Any questions or comments?
I may have some, I may need you to come back to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Daniels, any questions or comments?
Yeah, so a lot of this is just for refreshing my memory. But there are no additional costs related to paying off the debt, or are there any? I don't remember from the
So,
the settlement.
so the settlement agreement provides that interest accrues semi-annually on March 15th and September 15th of each year. So we incurred the extra semi-annual interest rate for the September payment. And we will incur it again on March 15th when they apply it for whatever is unpaid at that time. They take that extra interest and pop it into the payment schedule at that time. So that is where we would incur more debt at that point. Right now, we have a fixed number to pay off, which will not go up, that fixed number, because we have a schedule, and the accrued interest will not be there if we pay it off before that date. So we do have a moment in time that's clear where our cost goes up $1 million, very early next year. That's what we will have.
And then where the balance is being kept, do we accrue interest on it?
I don't understand your question. I'm sorry.
Where the
Are we getting interest on our savings? Does our fund balance accrue interest?
The answer to that is yes, and we do have we're limited as a city what we can invest in. And our best thing right now is a fund at the state called Pennsylvania Invest. And just so you, like in January, for most of the year, we were earning 0.01%, which is basically nothing. And that's what we've been earning for years. Now that has started to tick up, but it's still, much less than the 5% or the 6.75% that we're paying. So there is a savings by paying this debt.
And then you're expecting next year's budget to be about, the revenue we generate next year to be about 69 million.
69,100,000.
And that's just an absolute numbers, not inflation adjusted.
That's
Just an absolute number. Okay.
That's what the revenue figure works out.
Okay. So, and I think that's it for now.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Majors.
Thank you, and thank you all for your statements. Not sure if this is more of a question or a comment, but not for first comment first, I think as during Mayor Williams' statement, she mentioned and that I think all of us in this room are very supportive of taking care of this debt as quickly as possible. We've all been living this for a number of years in different capacities. As members of council, serving on different boards and commissions throughout the city. And I think part of the concern I have in terms of the current plan before us is, as the ICA mentioned, just some of the extenuating factors that we don't have a crystal ball looking into the future on what some of those implications could be on the city of Harrisburg moving forward. So I guess the first question I have would be, in the other scenarios that were contemplated, so if we pay 12 million this year, 8 million next year, the interest that we would pay versus paying off, instead of having $4 million that we would in interest that we wouldn't have to burden the taxpayers with, that number would be what is it? So is it the minus 250, or what's that adjusted number?
Yeah, if I'm following you, Councilman, the city would incur an additional $205,000 in interest cost.
Okay.
By not doing the full payment and going with that 12 million partial payment, approach.
Okay. Right. So the interest would just then be on the remaining number. So there'd be the 5% interest on 8 million versus
400,000.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Regardless of the payments made, that 5% holds.
Right.
Yeah,
No, no. Yeah. I just was making sure I knew that number. I get the 5%. I'm just trying to.
That would be about $4 million. I mean, 400,000.
As part of that 8 million.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. And then for city solicitor, the resolution before us, does it contemplate giving the administration discretion, or is the one before us is just to pay everything off, correct?
The one before you is to make a full payment. That is the request of the mayor, is to bring it to you as a full payment. If you wanted to modify that, because this is a financial document, I would highly encourage that we have the finance office adjust the schedule so you have an accurate schedule in front of you. And the council can always add other conditions if it wished. You could say pay it off, but wait for X date. You can do that. So, but we've got to remember, under the contract, we have the 15th of each month.
Right.
That's why we've asked for it December 1st, just so they can prepare to pay it if council approves it, and there's 2 weeks to do the work. That clock just keeps running every month. If you get to, at least from a contractual evaluation, to say March 1st, you would probably be risking incurring the full half 6 months of interest on the account, which is significant. That is the issue. But regardless of whether you make the 12 million, a 20 million, or any other number in between, there's going to be a 6-month interest payment due for what the balance is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like I said, I guess I'll wait for my other colleagues, but as one member, I am of the mind of trying to take care of this debt as quickly as possible. I do think that we may want to be a little bit more, I guess, cautious and try to take care of it all in 1 year, and figuring out what a good number that could be agreed upon is for this year, taking care of it next year, because we would still ultimately be saving the taxpayers millions of dollars in interest versus carrying this out for the remainder of the life of the current pay schedule. So instead of 4 million, if we're saving taxpayers $3.795 million, that is still a significant amount of money that we are not going to be outlaid in interest on, as we all know, debt on top of debt. And we will be out of this albatross has been hanging on us for 25 years, not to mention, still having to deal with Act 47 and all the incinerator lawsuits. And, we want to continue to move the city in a positive direction. I appreciate all the work that's being done, but as one member of council, taking a little bit more of a conservative approach on this as we move forward. Would make sense to me, still trying to get it knocked out, all the debt paid off prior to our interest rate moving up to 6.75%. Thank you. Thank you, Vice President Ray.
Thank you, Councilman Majors. President Bowers?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And I just want to thank you first for your time and all the attention that you've put forth with this effort. I thought it was imperative for council members to have a clear understanding of all of our options and to note how we arrived on the full payoff option as the best option. So thank you for outlining those both privately and publicly here tonight. I do appreciate that. Ms. Carter, thank you for sharing the ICA's perspective. I do know that the October meeting is available on the city's YouTube page if anyone would like to view it, to hear the discussion there. I really don't have any questions. I feel like I've been talking about this and meeting about it pretty frequently, but just wanted to clarify, I guess, two things before we move on. We cannot, in terms of future borrowing, we are prohibited from borrowing until we are completely out of Act 47. So should this resolution move forward as a full payment, we're paid off, but we wouldn't be able to borrow immediately next year or thereafter. We have to vacate Act 47 before that borrowing can occur, correct?
That is the current status of the
Okay,
law.
And,
just
and
wanted to make sure. that was
also
clear.
on a planning side of it, we really should get this knocked out before we even think of going into the debt market, because this is definitely a negative mark against us having it on our record. So, that goes into the equation. So if you're looking 4 years off going into the debt markets, this is something that we need to get off the books as soon as possible.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that point. And I guess the fund balance. So if we were to move forward with option 2, the partial payment of the 12 million by December of 2022 and the 2 additional payments, one in March and September of next year, that would not exhaust our fund balance. Is that correct? Okay.
No, it would,
Just
the
wanna make sure.
only implication would be the added interest.
The interest,
205.
205. Okay,
Well,
got it.
it's 205,000.
And I just want to add, we believe there'll be $14 million of cash at the end of the year. Well, if
Yes.
you only spend 12 million, let's say in December,
Mhm.
then we're going to have a balance $22 million at the end.
Okay,
So we will have those funds available.
okay,
And keep in mind that, depending on council's options, would always prepay, because there's no prepayment penalty.
mhm,
Trick would be to prepay early in the year, not in September.
okay.
Because then you would be able to
Increase
still have it fully paid off by mid-year, but have time to examine.
that interest would be the ticker. Okay,
So you won't pay the full interest. The earliest you pay it in 2024, the less interest.
okay. Thank you for clarifying. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, President Bowers. Councilman Mattson?
For my benefit, I guess part of the concern here is if there was an unforeseen event and that we had to use emergency funds essentially. I'm curious what are some of the examples of an unforeseen event?
Well, I'll have actually Bill
A
Lineberg.
$5 million HVAC system?
I'm just, but honestly, is it,
That's just
is it,
what we seen to the, this year was a $5
Yeah,
million
that would
HVAC
be-
system.
Yeah, that would be like a big thing, but Bill can come and speak, he's got almost 30.
because my question ultimately at the end of the day is, what are the likelihood of these events happening in the next 6 months? I know we don't know, and we don't have a crystal ball, but
And I'd like to add to that, but we still have $15 million for
Right.
that. So even if we had some event, it's hard to imagine us spending
Yeah.
15 million unexpected dollars.
I mean, to look at it, you know, a couple people have reiterated. GFOA's recommendation is 17% of what your budget is. If we have a $70 million budget, just to make the math a lot easier, that's approximately, and it's under, but it's approximately $12 million. So you're
Right,
still-
11.8.
Yeah, you're still far above that. And as it stands for an unforeseen circumstance, Bill has 30 years' experience of unforeseen issues that pop up, from sinkholes to snowstorms. Bill, what are-
And again, sorry, it's because I know, I got a little bit of reaction for asking that, but well, hold that thought for a moment, because if it's a natural disaster, right, FEMA comes in, right?
First side.
So I guess and I will defer to Bill here, but I mean, there always seems to be some kind of mechanism of relief through the federal government or state government or.
Their reimbursements in most cases, as I see Councilman Major.
Yeah, yeah. So in any case, and I mean, Bill could speak to this more clearly than I can, but there would be an outlay of money that the city would have to have if we were going to seek reimbursement from any, if there's an insurance policy or, you know, a federal reimbursement, et cetera, on anything. I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
I could speak realistically to your question, because I think the reality is very unlikely. The difference of the city of Harrisburg and everybody else in the state, except now maybe the city of Chester, is we do not have access to any credit. What we would have to do in reality is, if we got to that situation, we would be very hard pressed not to go back and execute the instant agreement that gives us access to the credit market, but places the incinerator litigation at risk. I mean, we would have to make a policy decision in the city based on very difficult circumstances, but very unlikely difficult circumstances. So we would always, you know, I think what the administrations do is they problem solve. The council problem solves. If we get to a problem, you know, we look at our options and we try and solve it. So you will not be without options. I mean, that is simply the reality. It's just there could be the point where there are hard decisions to make. I gave the example, which I think Dan didn't like, was the bridge collapse in Pittsburgh and Philly. That's an unforeseen thing. We can't predict it. There's nothing we could do if it happened. But again, it would be reimbursement. But we would then still have options, just like we'd be negotiating with everybody at that point for how to move forward. So there would be options on to do it. So
Yeah, we have 5 bridges in the city, and the cost of replacement of any of them wouldn't be anywhere near even $10 million. So we go through that with the county every year when we look at that. So
right.
if we were to have a bridge issue, we would have more than enough fund balance to cover that.
And it will be increasing, like by April, what did you say, $7 million?
Over
additional.
$7 million back up.
There's plenty of funds.
Okay. Yeah, that was it. Cause in my mind, I was thinking, you know, it's a 500-year floodplain. So how often does a flood happen? Pandemic happens every 100 years. So, hey, maybe. But no, those are good examples, and anything could happen, I guess, but that was. Yeah. But. Yeah, okay, yeah, no. Thank you. That was it for me.
Thank you, Councilman Mattson. Councilwoman Rouse.
Thank you and good evening to everybody, and thank you for coming. The joy of sometimes being last is everybody's asked your questions. They've been answered, and I don't have any. I understand very clear now that everyone's asked the questions, and you all had a good presentation, so thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments before I make my final comment?
I guess someone mentioned 7 million in April. I missed that the first time around.
Well, the point I was making is that, like, on this, we'd have 14 or 15 million at the end of the year, but by the end of April, we'd have another $7 million. So if some disaster, something happened, we wouldn't have 14 million, we'd have $21 million.
Cash flow projection.
Oh,
So-
okay.
so
It's
you
not
could
extra,
grow
not,
by
okay,
7
okay.
Yeah, but I think that, but Treasurer Miller, that would be a projection, right? Like that's not, that is what we'd be projecting we'd have versus the fund balance we currently have, determining what a number would be to take out to make a significant payment on AMBEC, whatever would be left in our fund balance would be there. Like I said, we know what numbers typically are. But that number, that 7 million is a projection, right?
It is, but it's based upon historical data. And we collect over $10 million of real estate taxes in March. So, and we're collecting money every month. We've got money that we're collecting. So I would say I'd feel really confident.
And we got to that same number plus 37. I will add that too. So that blended a little. It's not completely out of,
Okay, yeah.
If that doesn't happen, we're in other
Right,
trouble.
right. And then I guess, and then my apologies, Vice President Green, Chair Green. And then in terms of how we got to this plan, there was no additional outside financial advisors that made any recommendations. The only recommendations came from the controller's office, the treasurer's office, and the administration.
Well, I am a financial professional.
Right.
Bill is too.
No
Both
licensed
CPAs.
firm that
Right.
does it.
That's all. I'm not, I know your resume. It wasn't, I'm not trying to, I'm just asking if any additional financial advisors were involved in this process. That's all I was asking.
But I would add, probably no one has more knowledge and experience than Bill and I. Even outside people, we've been here, we've got experience.
Yeah, no, I understand you have knowledge, know your background. That was just, it was any additional, that's all the question was. It wasn't a jab at anyone. I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess you're asking for comments. like,
No,
or
if you have any, you don't
general
have to have
thinking.
any. I've got one final comment.
I mean, I just want to just give you a sense of where I'm thinking about things, right? I know that, right, so if we're budgeting for next year for 69 million, and we know that inflation rate has been about 8%, it really means that we're serving our city at really about 63 million, which is a much smaller budget that we've been working with for a while. I mean, since I've been on council, which means that we're seriously contemplating like even more reduced services. And I've always thought of the balance fund as like the thing that fills in those service gaps. So that's like, those are kind of part of my general thinking process. I'm also, we don't know what next year is going to look like. I think coming out of the pandemic, everything from, inflation could go back to normal next year. It could also expand. And we know that if it does expand, interest rates when we are able to take loans will be higher than what we're looking at now. So those are just kind of, where I'm thinking like paying off a lot of the debt at the expense of, we're really shrinking the size of our ability to serve our residents. And they're already very, very underserved. I mean, is your office back to fully functioning at this point?
That depends on the budget.
Right. So we're not really at full, right?
Let me take that back. We are definitely fully functioning.
Okay, so,
Depends on
so,
what your
yeah.
definition of that is. We're
Right, and
definitely fully functioning.
yeah, so I think those are the things I'm weighing as I think about it, because if if we are in the misfortune of facing more inflation as we go along, whatever we borrow a few years from now, the interest rate will be a lot higher than this. But we don't know what that is, and we're probably not going to know for a little bit more because we're really just 1 year, we're just a few months really coming out of the pandemic. I don't know how, I don't know how the metrics for
But can I
predicting
add
that.
I mean, what you said is what your thought process is exactly right. And that would be 63 million. But I think that we're forgetting is that of that 69 million that we served like last year, 5 million was to debt service. So that wasn't, so we're going to have that 8.5 million in addition that's able to put towards services. So actually, we're going to be able to increase our services.
Yeah, there is planned in this budget increases. I think we're working through with police on new officers coming through in January. Additional things in Parks and Rec, park rangers, and people to deliver classes and services to children and seniors. Those things are being budgeted in there, and a lot of that is from the savings we had from the debt last year that we paid off coming in there. But yeah, inflation has weighed on. There are things that have gone up dramatically. With the budget, that inflation caused what it caused. But the budget will be balanced with increased services. And that is strictly because we had in September that debt paid off.
Right,
We're
so-
able to continue to
Yes.
increase service.
I guess it's just a philosophical difference of what's the best of maintaining or improving, increasing our services. Do we use the fund balance to do that, to do it directly, or do we do it to pay off the debt so then the debt payments are freed up in the budget? So I think that's really fundamentally the question we're asking. The risk at stake is really the interest rate we will borrow at in a few years from now, and what we think that might be if we have.
And I also think, we do have to take a look at the type of thing we would take out a loan or float a bond for. It's not something we're gonna have the money in our cash balance reserve that you're gonna say, okay, well, here's that chunk of money that's going to go into that. You're talking a bond issuance is $50+ million, that sort of thing. A large chunk of money to fund capital projects on roads, parks, go through the long list of whatever we all see fit on what we want to do with that. That's something we're never going to pay as you go through cash balance. When that moment comes, we are going to have, because it would not be prudent to build up a cash position 100% of what our budget is, so then we have $50 million in cash. Because at that point, people are going to start looking, why do you have a balance of 50, 60, 70, $80 million? Nobody operates that way on a municipal level. So there's a philosophical thing we have to address, but when the point does come, we're going to have to sit down, and whether it's capital projects, whether it's new construction of something, we are going to have to all come together, one, and map out what that looks like on the budget side, but then two, what's the best way to fund it? Necessarily, the splash we would go and make in the market isn't something we could ever consider funding through the fund balance. Just because of the cost of it. What you mentioned, the HVAC systems, $6 million itself. Just think of if you had to do a major rebuild of this building and a few of the parks together. That money elevates a lot faster than you can.
Anyone else? All right. Well, thank you to everyone for being here tonight. Thank you to everyone from the administration, the controller's office, the treasurer's office, and the ICA for giving us a presentation as well as engaging in discussion with us about Resolution 64. Looking at the schedule of payments, I don't see a need to vote tonight. I don't see the point. To me, it seems like it will be a rush to vote tonight. So I would request that we do table this at least at minimum to our next legislative session, and possibly further out. I think that's kind of a discussion that we'll have with each other as well as the administration. I will say, just listening to tonight's discussion, I could see being in support of a large payment along with whatever surplus we have from this year's budget, right? Let's not put it in the fund balance. Let's put it straight on debt, right? Instead of putting it in the bank and letting it sit there, let's use money that we didn't spend that we budgeted for along with a large chunk. So that's just kind of some of the thoughts that's going through my head as I sit here, but I do not see a big need to vote on this tonight specifically. If any of my colleagues disagree, please feel free to voice it. So that will be my suggestion.
Just, I guess, two questions. The next scheduled legislative session is, I think it's, on the paper I have is December 13th, but now we have budget hearings that are coming up.
It's next week.
Okay.
Next Tuesday,
Oh,
November
sorry. Yeah, I
twenty-second.
looked way, I'm looking way down. Okay, November 22nd.
Yeah.
Okay. And if it were to be, I guess, if we were to take a vote on, if it were to come up at the November 22nd legislative session, would, in any form, would that administration give you enough time to prepare any documents to try to ensure a payment would be done before the December 15th?
I mean, it would not take us long, because we've already run a lot of those, what those.
A lot of
schedules
scenario,
look
different
like.
schedules and scenarios.
So, it just gets to what you're comfortable with, and then talking to Neil about the amendment side of it. We'll work on all the additional documentation to go along with how council would like to proceed. Completely open.
And I would suggest if a council member has a specific scenario or scenarios that they would like to see, if that was communicated to the business administrator in the finance office, the schedule could be prepared. At least so if you wanted to vote, you would have the schedule already. You would have to come back a third time on the question.
Not take this long, so you just tell us, where we would like to go with this. We'll run it by the mayor, run the schedule. Completely open the work.
Yeah, the 12 million partial payment scenario, it's already in draft form as part of the scenarios we initially produced.
Mr. Mattson, Councilman Mattson, excuse me.
Yeah, so I guess for me and my thought process through this is just the interest in looking over those numbers really, really concerns me. And I know we don't necessarily have to vote tonight, but I think, I don't know, I hope we can resolve this before the end of the year. Or as soon as possible, just because it just seems like with this interest hanging over our head, it just, yeah.
Keep in mind, we do need at least a few days lead time to prepare the paperwork for it. December 15th is coming fast. With that, but we do have a little bit of time here. So just wrap your head around as a group, what you would like to see. We may already have that scenario mapped out, and then all of it really requires a conversation with the mayor.
And the next time we accrue interest is March 15th, correct? But we obviously want to have it paid maybe in February or so before we would accrue interest.
Right, the March 15th date, that's the amortization date, but we're still accruing interest. So for example, December 15th is coming. If there's no payment made, for the remainder of the year, you have that half month of accrued interest. It just keeps rolling along.
It's $70-some thousand a month. 1,000 and change a day.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, that's my recommendation. I suppose we would first need to go back into session. So I'll make a motion to go back into session.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. We've now returned to our legislative session after discussion of Resolution 64 of 2022 and the recommendation coming from Vice President Green, our Budget and Finance Committee Chair, is to table for future discussion. So we will now move forward to Resolution 66 of 2022. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution 66, 2022, a resolution authorizing the city of Harrisburg to negotiate and enter into an intergovernmental cooperation agreement with the township of Swatara for the purpose of allowing for ongoing use of a compost facility owned by the township of Swatara.
Thank you. Council members, are there any questions, comments, or concerns related to Resolution 66 of 2022? Okay, seeing and hearing none, Mr. Truesdale, could you please call the vote?
Ms. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Madsen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Rawls,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez, Ms. Bowers.
Yes,
Passes unanimously.
thank you. We will now move to Resolution 67 of 2022. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution 67, 2022, a resolution of the Council of the City of Harrisburg ratifying modifications to the 2020-2025 collective bargaining agreement between the City of Harrisburg and the Fraternal Order of Police, Capital City Lodge number 12.
Thank you. Council members, are there any questions, comments, or concerns related to Resolution 67 of 2022? Okay, seeing and hearing none, Mr. Truesdale, could you please call the vote?
Ms. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Madsen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Rolls,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers.
Yes,
Passes by a vote of 7-0.
thank you. Next, we have Resolution 68 of 2022. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution 68, 2022, a resolution authorizing the city solicitor to designate counsel for the performance of certain prosecutorial functions on behalf of the City of Harrisburg.
Thank you. Council members, are there any questions related to Resolution 68 of 2022? Okay, seeing and hearing none, Mr. Truesdale, could you please call the vote?
Ms. Daniels, Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Madsen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Rawls,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers.
Yes,
Passed by a vote of 7-0.
thank you. Resolution 69 of 2022. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution 69, 2022, a resolution authorizing the City of Harrisburg to negotiate and enter into a professional services contract with Steve Zimmerman to provide access and service of the city's historical mainframe, programming operations, and related services in the Bureau of Information Technology.
Thank you. Resolution 69 of 2022 will move to the Building and Housing Committee. Resolution 70 of 2022. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution 70, 2022, a resolution authorizing the City of Harrisburg to negotiate and enter into a professional services agreement with Civitas LLC for the purpose of providing professional services to the city's Department of Building, Housing, and Development, including but not limited to technical assistance and general consulting services for general technical assistance, consolidated plan development, analysis of fair housing choice impediments, LEAD Tier 2 site-specific environmental review, and environmental review for emergency demolition.
Thank you. Resolution 70 of 2022 will move to the Building and Housing Committee. Next, Resolution 71 of 2022. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution 71, 2022, a resolution appointing Ms. Gina Robertson to serve on the board of the Susquehanna Regional Transportation Authority.
Thank you. Resolution 71 of 2022 will move to the Administration Committee. Next, we have Resolution 72 of 2022. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution 72, 2022, a resolution approving the fourth proposed 2022 budget reallocation.
Thank you. Resolution 72 of 2022 will move to the Budget and Finance Committee. Next, Resolution 73 of 2022. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution 73, 2022, a resolution authorizing the City of Harrisburg to accept a personal property loss payment by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's Department of Transportation for the outdoor advertising device located at 1812 Paxton Street.
Thank you. Resolution 73 of 2022 will move to the Administration Committee. Our final resolution for consideration is Resolution 74 of 2022. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution 74, 2022, a resolution confirming the appointment of David West to serve as Director of Public Works for the City of Harrisburg.
Thank you. Resolution 74 of 2022 will also move to the Administration Committee. Council members, is there any old business for discussion tonight?
I forgot to mention.
Yes.
But I would like to ask, Lobby, do you have a sense of when the CDBG allocations will be coming down? Like, pretty.
I do not have the information as of right now.
Okay, thank you. Any new business? Councilman Majors.
Yes, thank you, President Bowers. I just wanted to note for residents that, I mean, as we know today with the winter weather that we're experiencing, the LIHEAP season has opened up, the Low Income Housing Energy Assistance Program that can help low-income families help with pay their heating bills in the form of a cash grant. Residents that are in need of assistance can reach out online through the PA Compass system, make application, or they can download or receive a paper application from the local county assistance office. As temperatures are beginning to drop, just want to make sure that our residents are able to avail themselves of opportunities to be able to ensure that they can stay warm throughout the winter. So if anyone needs that information, they can go visit those sites, and I'll talk up to our building and housing director about ensuring all the information which has been will be posted to our city website. Thanks, President Bowers.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rawls.
Yes, thank you, President Bowers. So this Saturday, the city of Harrisburg will present the Cargill Holiday Parade in downtown Harrisburg on Saturday, November 19th, 2022 at 10 a.m. This year's theme is a very vibrant holiday. The parade will feature giant parade balloons, marching band and dance team, performances, decorated floats, characters, Santa Claus, of course, has to make an appearance, and many more. Yes, it's so important. He's checking his list. You can also enjoy free hot chocolate and cookies while supplies last. So first come, first serve, and find out the marching, And also there will be a step drill team, and there will also be prizes given out for marching bands are going to be rewarded $500 for the best marching band in first place, $300 for second place, and $200 for third place, along with trophies. The top 3 dance, step, drill teams receive trophies, and the best in theme winner receives a $100 Amazon gift card. Also while in the city, be sure to grab lunch from one of the many terrific restaurants and get some holiday shopping done at the shops and boutiques while also giving back to small businesses in the Harrisburg area. Just some quick housekeeping on it. There will be free parking you can receive 4 hours of free street parking in the downtown area using the code LOVE Harrisburg. Love is spelled L-U-V, and then Harrisburg is HBG. All this information can be found on the government website where the code is there, any parking and more parking information, also any road closures and the direction of the parade. So I hope everyone can attend. Thank you.
Thank you. Council members, the time is 8:05 p.m. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. We stand adjourned.